Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we are going to cover the core concepts of cloud computing. I've worked with many different businesses and enterprise, and this is the top questions that I always get. I have invested on an on-premises infrastructure. Why should I move to the cloud? And what is cloud computing? In short answer, I tell them, what if you could run a very powerful servers or store endless data or run your applications without owning a single server? That is the magic of cloud computing. So let's move to my presentation where I'm going to explain what is cloud computing, where it's coming from, the story behind it, and everything that you need to know to cover that question. Are you excited? Let's get started. Okay, so before we define cloud computing, I have a very small story, which it might help you to understand a little bit about what is cloud computing and how it works. So let's go back to Amazon at the the 2000s. So Amazon always used to own the Amazon.com website, which is the e-commerce website that has a massive infrastructure challenges during the 2000s. And customers normally used to experience a lot of downtime during the Christmas. So the peak for Amazon used to be the Christmas time, where everybody was jumping in the 2000s buying gifts and stuff like that. And then what happens is they always experience a lot of downtime, which also results into Amazon loss in revenues and so on. So they were running thousands of servers and storage system to handle the retail website, things like managing product catalog, user accounts, and payments. So to solve these challenges, Amazon decided to expand its infrastructure to support the peak during the Christmas time, because they don't want to lose money, but also they are very customer obsessed. So they wanted to provide the best experience possible. So they have expanded their infrastructure and the customers were happy, all good. But there was one more problem, which is we've paid so much money on the infrastructure. How about the rest of the year? So now the over-provision capacity, and now they need to do something with this. So using the power of virtualization, Amazon came in 2005 and then thought about, okay, we are using a very powerful technology. We are capable of running our own data centers. We have strong security measures, strong designs, and so on. How about renting this infrastructure to our customers? This is where the cloud computing came from. It's all about cost optimization. It's all about running or I am as a vendor, which basically AWS or Microsoft or Google Cloud or other cloud providers. We run those infrastructure better than you do it. So let's rent it to our customers. So when we define cloud computing, it's all about accessible compute and storage and networking resources over the internet. So basically, it's a data center that you don't own. It's Microsoft or AWS or Google Cloud or Oracle or whatever that they own it, they manage it, they handle the hardware refreshment, software, everything, and you just use and provision the services. Okay. When it comes to cloud computing options, you have many types. We have the public cloud. So that's this term, you will hear it a lot. Like, as I mentioned, things like Microsoft Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, Oracle, Alibaba, Huawei Cloud, and many, many more. There's also the private cloud, which is your on-premises data center, basically. And also, we have a product called Microsoft Azure Local. It's actually this slide is a bit outdated, but Microsoft Local or Azure Local is basically you have the Azure ecosystem installed on appliance, and then you build it in your own data center. And we have also what we call it hybrid cloud. So hybrid cloud is a mix between the private cloud, so you have some data and application exist on your private or your local on-premises data center, and then you have also some application distributed on your public cloud. So that's and also if we can fit one more option, it's gonna be multi-cloud and on-premises as well. Now, A lot of customers are here in public cloud, so they are fully embracing the cloud, no on-premises infrastructure at all. And a lot of many customers is also in the hybrid model. So this is where Microsoft become very powerful, because Microsoft got the strong relationship with the enterprises and businesses, and normally their first footprint was actually on the enterprise space, or the with the business in general, with Windows Server, or applications like SQL Server, Active Directory, Exchange, and so on. So they have a very strong relationship. And then they introduced their public cloud, which is Microsoft Azure. So I would say a lot of customers I see or I work with them today is on the hybrid cloud. So when to use what? So public cloud is also not for everyone, but there are also stages, right? So some customers, they might be upscaling to learn about cloud computing. So that's why they stay hybrid. So a mix between private and public cloud. Maybe the budget as well. So I've invested so much in my private data center. So maybe I still have few more years till I have its hardware refreshment cycle. So I'm going to stay private for quite some time. Maybe I have legacy applications. So if you have legacy application that cannot run yet in the cloud or in the public cloud, so they remain on the private cloud. Many also regions and customers, they have sensitive information that cannot go to the cloud. So you will see it a lot on the governmental side. Although now there's what we call it sovereign cloud, but again, there are things like military or police or whatever where they have their own policies that they cannot yet move to the cloud. So they classify their data, and then they start to say these things gonna move to the public cloud, and these things gonna remain on my private cloud or my on-premises data center. So that's why you will have these type of cloud computing option. Probably you have seen this slide before or not, but cloud is a shared responsibility model. And I see a lot of mistakes that customers do. And sometimes when they raise support tickets, when I used to work with AWS or even other, other companies, when they raise tickets, they say, okay, hey, I have this virtual machine and I've mistakenly deleted it. And I need you to recover the data. So if you deleted the data, it's not going to be recovered, okay? So when I say shared responsibility model, it's so important to understand the types of services that the cloud computing offer today. If you see the orange side here, the orange side, means your responsibility, and the green side is Microsoft responsibility or the vendor responsibility. When we say shared responsibility model, depends on the type of the service that you're going to use over the Azure cloud or Microsoft Azure, your responsibility might be more or less. Okay, so if you see on the orange side, this is your on-premises data center. So basically you own everything. You are responsible for everything. So starting from the underlying hardware, like your on-premises data center, cooling systems, security of the data center, disaster recovery, hardware renewals, operating system refreshment, backup, disaster recovery, and everything. So you can see everything is your responsibility here till you just release a few applications, which make the time to go to the market. If you are a CEO, it takes so much time, because it's so hard. Like, what if I want to enter the Indian market or the European market or the Middle Eastern market? You have to build an entire data center, hire a team, order the hardware. It takes so much time just to build a single data center. What if you want to apply the best practice, which is basically have a disaster recovery, have a backup sites, and all of this kind of stuff? So it will be more and more complicated. And before cloud computing, it was taking so much time to just provision or start create your own data center, which makes it very difficult for small businesses to be up and running and functioning and deliver something. And you can see many of customers today, things like Netflix and Uber and so on, are just fully embracing the cloud computing because it's easy to start. The infrastructure is there. Now, we have a few types of services when it comes to Microsoft. We have the infrastructure as a service, or IaaS. Basically, when you start to migrate to the cloud, you will think about these options. So the first option is like I'm running a virtual machine, maybe Hyper-V, or like I have a virtualization platform like Hyper-V or VMware or Citrix or whatever. And then I would like just to offload the responsibility of the physical hardware. So that's why the infrastructure as a service here, I'm just gonna offload my data center responsibility to Microsoft, but I still want a full access to my virtual machine. So you will get the operating system access. You will get you have to manage the updates, you have to manage the high availability, backups, and anything above the operating system. Normally, when to use this model or infrastructure as a service, I've seen there is no golden rule. So customer likes it, to use service like Azure Virtual Machine, because I'm used to a virtual machine, whether it's Windows or Linux, and I just want to use a virtual machine on the cloud. When to use it, sometimes it depends on the timeline. Timeline is very critical. So normally if you want to exit as soon as possible, like you have 6-month window and you don't want to renew your on-premises hardware, then you always have to move your customers on the infrastructure as a service, and then later on we can do the modernization or move to the other services over the time. Sometimes also the team is still learning, so again people like virtual machines, but they have to also you have to own a highly skilled team. People, like if you're running SQL Server, for example, or Windows file servers, or maybe mail services or whatever, then you still have to have the capability to manage the high availability, disaster recovery, the actual administration of the application, and so on. If you have Kubernetes, you have the master and worker node. You can also provision virtual machines and then build the entire Kubernetes infrastructure into the Azure virtual machines. Some other customers, if they have budget, then we also talk about the Azure VMware solutions. So if you have vCenter and VMware on premises, you would like to use VMware as a service, you don't have any knowledge about cloud computing, I just want to use vCenter of the cloud or managed by Microsoft, then you can actually, I do consider it between platform as a service and infrastructure as a service. So you can provision it and provision a VMware as a service, use the bare metal offering, and then you manage everything. You don't see the Azure portal, you just see the vCenter managed from Microsoft. Then you have the second type of services, what we call the platform as a service, or PaaS. So basically, we start to take some responsibility from you, or Microsoft starts to take responsibility from you. So you lose operating system access, middleware, and runtime, and now you just only focus on your application and the data. So things like Azure SQL, things like storage account, things like Azure AI Foundry services, things like virtual network, all of these are managed services. So basically you only create the service and then start with minimal configuration, things like maybe I want to use a managed websites like Azure App Services. Then I don't want to manage the IaaS or the Apache server. I just want to push my code and then work on it. So I just focus on the modernization. These are some of the examples I'm talking about, so that's why this is the platform as a service. And again, when the timeline and when the customers start to be I move to the cloud, I'm using virtual machine, now it's time for modernization. So this is where we start to think about the platform as a service. If the customer have the timeline from the beginning and have the budget and would like to modernize or to rethink their current architecture, then you can actually start to move them right away between platform as a service and software as a service. So software as a service, as you can see, everything is managed by Microsoft. So you don't really see the server, you don't really see the high availability, nothing. It's just it's a managed service, fully managed service from Microsoft. You only need to use the service. So it's like a magic. We call it just works. Things like Microsoft 365 products, Exchange Online, Yammer, OneDrive, SharePoint Online, all of these products are no longer, you're no longer managing these products. You're just creating the mailbox, you're just creating the users, buying the licenses, and then you're good to go. So normally these two, the infrastructure as a service and platform as a service, we refer it to Azure or Microsoft Azure. And software as a service is the M365 products. Things like GitHub and GitHub Copilot is managed services. Things like Microsoft Copilot Stack is also a managed service. There's a lot of things that you can see it, and maybe Hotmail, if you use hotmail.com, it's a managed service, basically. So you don't know, like if you have no background or knowledge about how to manage or build the email servers, or like SharePoint or whatever, the administration itself, so you just can fully offload that to Microsoft for a monthly fee. So this one is both of these models are rental. So basically you rent the license, you don't own anything, you don't own the infrastructure. But the difference here, it's consumption. So here you pay for what you use. So think of it like electricity. If you switch on the electricity, then you get a consumption bill by the end of the month. And then you pay let's say 100 euros or 50 euros or 200 euros and so on, depends on your usage. On the software as service, normally it's a license. So it's a license, which means is that, okay, it's per user license. Let's say I have 100 users for certain package like M365 E5 or E3 or whatever. Then you pay $10, $20 per month per user. So that's how it works on the software as a service. But we will dive deep into the future videos as well. So why Microsoft Azure? Why customers come for Azure today? First of all, the global infrastructure. Azure got more than 70 regions across the world, and which we will dive deep into a different section. It has more than 400 data centers, 600k of kilometers of network, and 190 plus network POPs. And probably this slide might be old, so you always have to check the global infrastructure from the documentation, which we will dive deep into the next video. So why we are moving to the cloud? These are I would say the common use cases. I'm not gonna go through everything here, but we have discussed a few reasons. Like normally when you discuss or when you have a discussion with the stakeholders or the upper stakeholders like the CTO and the CEO and so on, or even the infrastructure managers, normally you talk to them around what we call the Cloud Adoption Framework, or the CAF. And one of the most important is to gather the business case, is why we are moving to the cloud. It's so important to gather this requirement, to understand the challenges, to understand the why, and so on. These are the most common use cases, like things like I'm no longer wanna manage the on-premises infrastructure, so I'm doing a data center exit. I need to do a lift and shift, or migrate as is. So I want to exit as soon as possible and use the cloud computing. Maybe merger, acquisition, and so on. Maybe I want to reduce my capex. So basically, I don't want to own the infrastructure. I don't want to handle the high cost of electricity. I want also to remain green, with the environment and so on. So all of these are the reasons to move to the cloud. Maybe I want to adopt the AI technologies again. Managing the GPU and doing all of these great models that we have over Microsoft Azure Cloud. It's not easy to do on premises, so maybe I would like to use the Azure AI services. Maybe I would like to use cost, to reduce costs as well. So cloud is one of the most important, or the top notch of the cloud is to do cost optimization, which we will tackle how cloud computing is actually cheaper than the on-premises infrastructure. And also, the more you you pay for what you use, so you forget about things like over provisioning. I need to over provision for future capacities. All of this kind of stuff are actually reasons, or one of the reasons that why customers move today. And one of the most important things is it's easy to use. So the modernization part as well. So a lot of customers find that the cloud is easy to manage, and it's easy to to focus on the actual coding and the actual innovation. Is cheaper, so cloud always win on that part. Of course, latency, right? So we've discussed the global coverage. The regions are there for you. So when you have these many regions across the world, it's the infrastructure is there, the services are there. You just need to create them. It takes a few minutes or a few hours just to have a full project up and running for you, and then you start testing, and then maybe you start to be quickly in business. So it's quick, it's easy to provision, it's easy to focus or it's easy to reach your customers across the world. So reduce latency, achieve regularity and compliance. If you would like to be compliant with HIPAA, GDPR, and so on, there are things are achieved by design because of the cloud best practice that we, like every cloud vendor, follow, and there are things that you need to pay extra to, to be more compliant with certain standards, such as enable multi-factor authentication, or use firewalls and so on, that you need to pay extra. Depends on the type of the service that you are currently using. Finally, the focus in innovation. If you are a group of developer, or maybe if you are a hospital business, if you're an accounting business, and you don't have that technical expertise of IT, maybe you will have a few 4 or 5 resources that can fully administrate the cloud. So you don't have to have the hassle of managing the underlying physical hardware, the expertise that you probably need, which costs you a lot of money, costs you a lot of time, costs you a lot of labor, which you can reuse that labor into or focus on innovation, bringing AI in, and save costs and more. So that's the top of mind that when we say what is cloud computing, why cloud computing, and so on. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.